Okay, guys, so here we go. We're going to try writing equations now. This is my second attempt. I'm trying to make these things not as long. I got a little long-winded in the last one, so I'm going to try to be a little bit more short and sweet on this one. What we're doing here is writing equations, and the idea is that if you're given a word problem, that from that word problem you can pull out an equation. So we need to know the parts of the equation. They're going to look something like this. There's going to be a number next to an x, and then a number out here plus or minus by itself. So there'll be plus or minus number out here by itself, and there'll be a number by the x here, equal to another number. It'll look something like this. To make this mean a little bit more, I'm going to use a word problem that I always use with my kids. It's very simple, it's easy to follow, and it's also one that would be awesome if it actually happened. So in this particular scenario, the word problem is Mr. Barnhart's going to take a bus, or get a bus, take all my kids to the UFC event, boom. We're going to pay $10 to enter the parking garage, got to park, right? And then we're going to pay $5 per hour. The question is if we spent $50, how long would we have actually been there? So here you go. This number out here by itself is called the constant. The constant will later on be called y-intercept when we get deeper into the algebra. But the constant is your starting point. It's the initial fee. It's something that you have to pay to start time. So in this case, in this scenario, we have to pay $10 to enter the parking garage. As soon as we enter the parking garage, that's when time starts. So we have to pay that $10 to get time to start. That's that initial fee. That's that starting point. That's your constant. Okay? The number that's next to the variable of course, is your unknown. We don't know how many hours we were there. But in this case, we had to pay $5 per hour. So the number that's next to x, that's called your coefficient. Later on, that's going to be called slope. But right now, we're going to call this thing coefficient. And there's key words to help you identify this number. And that is per, each, and every. So in this case, we said, okay, we have to pay $10 to get in the parking garage. Initial fee, startup point, that's our constant. And then we had to pay $5 per hour. That keyword per lets us know this is our coefficient. And the per hour, how many hours? Hours is x. That's our unknown. So then they'll end with a question, something like, so if we spent $50, how long were we there? In other words, solve for x and figure out how many hours we were there. So just one more time. The number that's out here by itself, this is your starting point. That's going to be called the constant. Later on, we'll end up calling that the y-intercept also. That's your initial fee. That's your startup point. The number that goes next to x, we call that the coefficient. That's your slope. We have keywords to help you identify that, what the coefficient is, and that's per, each, or every. Like in this case, again, we said $5 per hour. So to help hit this home, I want to give one more scenario, and we'll use a phone bill plan. That's one that everybody has experience with, and it's also pretty easy to follow. So this one will be 550x plus 100. Now, normally you're not going to be given the equation. You're going to be given the word problem, and you're going to have to come up with the equation. But right now, we're just trying to build the foundation. Honestly, the only way you're going to get better at writing equations is to practice them. But what I am trying to do is build a good foundation, because without it, you wouldn't be able to get much practice in. But once you kind of know the basics, you just got to play with it and practice. And so we're going to try to get a lot of that in class. But again, right now, we're just laying down the basics. So this word problem will be, we got to pay a $100 fee to start the plan, and then we're paying $50 per month. Okay, so once again, to start the plan, we had to pay $100. So before you ever start having the plan, getting whatever minutes you get per month, you got to pay $100. So again, this is our constant, this is our starting point, this is our initial fee. Our initial fee in this case is the $100 to start the plan. The coefficient, the numbers next to x, we're looking for keywords again, like per, each, or every. So in this particular scenario, we have to pay $100 to start the phone plan, and then we got to pay $50 per month. Per is our keyword that lets us know that 50 is our coefficient. Okay. In this case, our unknown, our variable, is going to be months. I had to pay $100 to start it up, $50 per month. Okay. Then our question would probably end with something like, if you spent $500, or how many months would it take for you to spend $500 with this plan? How many months X? So we'd have to solve for X, and then we'd figure out how many months we had this plan to the point where we spent $500. So just one more time, recap. The number out here by itself, that's the constant, okay? That's your initial fee, that's your starting point. In the case of the UFC event, that was us entering the parking garage and starting time. In the case of the phone plan, that's that initial payment in order to start the phone plan. The number that goes next to X, that's your coefficient. Our keywords for finding that are per, each, or every. In the case of the UFC event, we had to pay $5 per hour. In the case of the phone plan, we're paying $5 per month. And there'll always be a total amount for you to set the equation equal to, okay? And if they do ask you to solve, you just simply solve for X, which we've had plenty of practice on. And in the case of the UFC event, if we solve for X, that would tell us how many hours we were there. In the case of the phone plan, if we solve for X, that would tell us how many months we had to plan. So again, I want to just reiterate that I'm just laying down the foundation, constant, coefficient, keywords to finding the coefficient, and ways to find the constant. But again, the only way you're going to get good at writing equations is to practice them. So take this information that I've given you, come to class, and give it your best in trying to practice these writing equations, because they're going to be tough. We will eventually get to the point where we're writing equations like this, like 50x plus 100 is equal to maybe 20x plus 200. Okay? So, in other words, we'll be having variables on both sides. So the writing equations are going to get pretty complicated. This might be some kind of comparison between our one phone plan where we had to pay $100 to start it, and then $50 per hour, to another phone plan that maybe you had to pay $200 to start it, and then their coefficient was 20, meaning they had to pay $20 per month. So, again, those are the tools for finding the different parts of the equation. Now we got to practice, all right? And that's writing equations.